Okay, well, I've enjoyed listening to the other speakers. A lot of things they said uh, is it. I couldn't agree more, and I do many of those same things. I've been in the program for over 40 years, most of which has been OA 90. I have celebrated this year 40 years of back-to-back abstinence. I used to weigh 285 pounds, and I'm not that now. And OA is one of the best things I've ever done in my life. And so let me just tell you a little bit about my journey. I was a kid growing up in the Boston area, and I seemed like I was always on diets, and I was getting bullied and all that. And so it progressed, and then when I went to, I was again when I was going to high school, I was on diets and so forth, and then eventually I went on to higher education. Actually, I have a medical degree from Johns Hopkins. But don't hold that against me. uh, so, so how did my journey start? My wife and I went to visit her brother, and he was in Montana. So we went out to Montana, and we had a nice time. I was actually out there for a fiddle thing because I play a fiddle. I'm a bluegrass musician after I retired from the world of medical science, whatever. And he started to tell me about a program he was in. It was a 12-step program, and it was very interesting. So we talked about it, and he said, "Let me give you a big book." So he gave me a big book, and we went home to the Boston area, and my wife said to me, there's something for Overeaters Anonymous. There's something for food called Overeaters Anonymous. I said, "Oh, really?" Because I was pretty heavy. I was pushing 300 pounds, and so we looked into. I looked into OA. I found out where there were some meetings. I started to go to meetings, and I noticed there were mostly women there. And so then I was trying to learn about the program, and there was one of the meetings. There was a gentleman there, and after the meeting, I went down to him and I said, "Gee, I don't see many men in this program." He said, "Well," I said, "What meetings do you go to?" He says, "I go to a meeting in Medford. It's at the Lawrence Memorial Hospital. It's a nursing school. It's in the nursing auditorium, and there's a lot of people there. You ought to go." So so off I went, and the place was just full of people. Most of them were women, and so from the Blackboard 100 steps, I think it said, "I'm powerless over alcohol. My life's unmanageable." I said, "Wait a minute. I just have a food problem." And I would also say I started to see this stuff about God, and at that point I was sort of an agnostic. And so what I started was looking. I said, I got so many things going for me. I got faculty appointments in medical school. I'm doing a lot of consulting. I'm a musician. I'm a bike racer. I just have a food problem. So I was just sort of analyzing the whole thing, and I guess it took me about a year and a half before I finally. Oh, how did I get a sponsor? So at the first meeting, there were no men that stood up and said they would sponsor. So this wonderful woman who shared, I like what she said. I went up to her and I said, "Look, would you be my sponsor? She says, well, I'm kind of uncomfortable with a man. I said, look, I need some help. She says, okay. So she gave me her number, and I started to call her. And then she sort of very systematically led me through the program. She said, okay, the first thing we got to do is get your food in order. So there's a pamphlet called The Dignity of Choice. And there are suggested food plans. So you need to pick out one and we'll talk about it. I said, okay. So I came back and we talked about it. And she said, all right. So we gotta get your food in place. Don't worry about the steps, and let's just get your weight down. And she said, how much do you want to lose? I said, my goal weight was 210 pounds, and I was close to a lot more than that. And so I started. She said, let's just get the food right. Don't worry about anything else. Let's just get the food. You got a food plan, and now what you got to do is you got to weigh and measure your food. And at that time, there were no digital scales. You were like postal scales. So I started to do that, and I started to lose weight. So I got down to 210 pounds, and I said, I think I need to go lower. I need to change my goal weight. So I came up with like 190 or something like that. And she said, okay, let's continue on with your abstinence and so forth. And I did that. And finally, I reached a point where I said, I think one more time, I said, I think I need to go a little lower. So I went a little bit lower. And she said, okay. Now, this program is not about the weight, it's about the weight of life. So I wanted to get your food in its place. We've done that. Now what we've got to do is we've had to work the steps, and we have tools to do that. And so I still had this thing about the God thing. And I said, okay. So I started to work the steps, and then I started to get a realization. And she was my sponsor for like 2 or 3 years, so that continued on. And she was just a wonderful woman, a wonderful sponsor. And I don't really know why we left or not. It's almost 4 years ago. So I started. I was going to. I still had this thing about the God thing, the spiritual thing, and something happened very, very interesting. I was at a hockey game, and the man there was a player who wound up. His name was Travis Roy, and he got hit and he became paralyzed. He wound up in the hospital that I was involved with in Boston. So and they were the news media was covering that, and had his father was on on the broadcast. So I'm walking out the door, and who should be coming into the hospital was Travis Roy's father. And so I said, wow. I said, well, Mr. Roy, I know about your son. I was at the game. I saw it. It's awful. I said, how are you doing? And he said, one day at a time. And that stopped me in my tracks. And I said, I don't think this is a coincidence. I think this was meant to be. Where did it come from? It came from my higher power. So that's when my spirituality developed. And so I, as I said, I've been in a program a long time. My food plan is a little different than most, but I've managed to keep off over 100 pounds for 40 years. And it's OA 90, which has done it for me. And I think there's so much recovery in OA 90. And so I had a male sponsor for decades, and so that's how my program has evolved. And it's just been it's been one of the most wonderful adventures in my life. A sponsor said, you really need to start sponsoring people. So I started that, and it didn't work out okay. It worked out okay, but eventually it evolved into what I really want to do is be a step sponsor. So I will say that, I will, many times I'll say, I can get someone started, but I want to be a step sponsor. So I've had 2 or 3 people go through my step sponsoring, and that it isn't as long as an AWOL, but I said, let's give ourselves an hour to do this, and that's been that I really found grateful, and I do that with the 12 and 12. I've had some again, you got to realize that the people that I really have dealt with have mostly been men. So so I recently had a sponsee called up and said, I've been having, I had somebody told me his history of breaking his abstinence, this and that, and then he so I sponsored him from like maybe I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks, and he said, I broke my abstinence again. And I said, you know what? Call me when you get 90 days of continuous abstinence, and he's never called. So I think sponsoring is very important. It's a way to give back. Perhaps I'm a little bit too hard on people, but it's just I just can't say enough about this program. And it's what I've learned is 449 of the Big Book said nothing in this world happens by accident. And the reason is this is God's world. This is not Victor's world. So I just love the fact that this is a worship on sponsoring. I just want to give back, but most importantly, I still am a compulsive overeater in recovery, and that means I can lose it. So I just deal with life on a one day at a time, one moment at a time, and it's wonderful that we have a workshop on sponsorship, and I am willing to help people out. I guess I don't know what else to say. I'm just really grateful for Overeaters Anonymous and all of the people who've sponsored me, and all of the people I've talked to, and all of the meetings I've gone to, all the meetings I've qualified at. And it's just what a gift this is. And thank you, God.